Okie dokie. Hi. I was on a call. I hope everybody's having a good day. I've been having a busy one. Very busy. Very, very busy. But good busy, right? So one of the things that I've been doing is putting together, this is just the first couple I got done. There it is. All the mailings for the new book and writing down all the addresses for the mailings for the zines and stuff like that I'll be sending to people for supporting the book. And it's all fun stuff. That's the sort of stuff that makes your tummy all cuddly. Tummies being cuddly is a thing. Okay. But that's how I've started my day. Listen up. Today's page is from a suggestion from Marsh yesterday. It was, just because there's a method to my madness doesn't mean there's not also a madness to my method. Now, that's not an impression of anybody. That's just me being silly. Yeah, just because there's a method to my madness doesn't mean there's not also a madness to my method. This is a super fun suggestion. And so this is what I came up with. I drew this during the stream, for the most part. All I ended up adding at the bottom was that last panel. And, so this is what we got done during the stream, and I just added this little bit of business here. Really feel good, happy. And then the stuff that we talked about yesterday is what ended up going on the page. Marsh says, hello, Christopher and everyone. Page came out so good. Hey, thanks, buddy. Well, it was a Marsh suggestion. I know you like the black and white stuff. That's why I did it in black and white. So, yeah, I've also been formatting a bunch of other pages and getting stuff done. Like, here's another page. It's on the go, and so on and so forth. And just taking some of the stuff I've done in the past and figuring out, what can I do with this? How can I make something of a piece that I did some time ago and I don't feel good about, and just been sitting there in a stack, because I have a lot of that, and good fun in the sun. So let's see what else. Yeah, I can show you some books today if people want. Just let me know. Yeah, so I've been getting stuff done, and part of the whole thing about going through the whole process about mailing stuff. Now, I don't know what it is for people in other countries, but here in Canada, it's a process to go through Canada Post and to pay XYZ for it to go overseas. And there's this really fun factor in effect. If you don't mail with an international mailing company, and you try to mail through Canada Post, which they really encourage, the moment it leaves the country, you have no idea where it is. It's just gone. And, you're sort of just waiting to hear, hey, did you get it? And I feel like I always sound like a kind of a, when I mail something off to people, I'm like, did you get it? And I'll just wait for the response, and sometimes people, they don't let you know. And it just sort of leaves you in this perpetual limbo, because if I don't choose to use Purelator or some other big company, I'm not going to know what's going on. But let's be honest, folks. I generally don't know what's going on. Taking my watch off because I'm a sweaty watch band. And this is the new watch that I got. And it reads all of my deets, and which is really great. But at the same time, I don't enjoy the warm weather, and it's warm right now, so off the watch goes. Okay, so I'll pull up a suggestion for today's page, and we'll get crack-a-lackin'. So I like to switch it up. I really do. And I like to do different things in different mediums, and to just be able to play. And the challenge of that is that some of the different surfaces that I'll elect to work on, it's really hard to play on, with certain mediums, because they won't register. They just don't. And like if I try to draw a pencil on a jelly-plated surface or something like that, it's not going to show up. So I've been trying to experiment a little bit with that, and to figure out how I can make a go of it. So bear with me. We're going to experiment a little bit today. Sorry I'm late. Like I said, I was in the middle of a phone call and couldn't be helped. But let's jump over to some surface to work on today. Thank you for everybody that's sending in your picks of the book, or those. And I've tried to look up everybody that told me they picked up a book, and the master list I had for that, I don't know where I put it. And so I've been trying to rewrite the whole thing down because I really appreciate all the support. And so anybody whose address that I have, I've got down on the list to mail you stuff, whether you like it or not. And so I've been able to compile a number of things, and then people that I'm able to ask, hey, what's your address? That works as well. But yeah, there's still a bunch of folks that I don't have any details for, and I don't want anybody to feel left out. So if you're one of the people who I could use your address to mail something to you, please let me know. And as I'm trying to write down the names of the people that I'm aware that have purchased a copy of the book, it's a pleasant surprise. That was really nice, and I really appreciate that. And you know, it's the list is larger than I thought it was, but I'm not complaining. There's no part of me that's complaining in that, and there's no part of me that's bragging about it. If anything, it just sort of shows that I gotta keep better tabs on things, maybe, because I don't ever want anybody to feel like I don't appreciate what they've done. So, all right, let's put the zoom up. Put the zoom up. Sounds like some kind of dance line. Yeah. So here's a surface for me to work on today, and you can see here's the whole page. It's a heavy piece of cardstock, and I've got some masking tape on it. I've got some mixed media papers with some print on them that are put in with jelly matte medium. Boy, oh boy. And then I've got some white acrylic that's laid out over top of that. White acrylic or white ink, one or the other. So I'm going to try to draw on this in pencil. We're going to see how this goes. And if that doesn't work, I'll try something else in a second. But I want to see what we can do with this, and what we can do with this surface. I'll pick a suggestion in a second. See, even as I'm saying it, I'm like, I don't think pencil's gonna work on this. Maybe a colored pencil will work on this. We'll see. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, folks. We're all in this together. We've got different colored pencils I can use. Maybe a blue will show up better. Switch to the blue. Okay, so yeah, thanks very much, Marsh, for the suggestion for yesterday's page, and thank you to everybody with all your suggestions that are coming in. I wanted to talk about something silly today. I say silly, but it's not at all. And one of the things is we live in an age where everything is about accomplishing something and moving on. It's all about expediting and moving forward. It's almost like our society is about faster, quicker, do the thing. Actually, giving me a lot of ideas lately. Oh my God. Anyways, steel workers arriving. Check out Burl Ives' The Donut Song. That's fun. Nuns in a drum circle being called a conundrum. Nuns in a drum circle being called a conundrum. Hey, Paula. Paula, can you DM me your address? Because I think, Paula, I think you picked up a copy of the book, and I'm just trying to everybody that's been so supportive. I just want to say thank you. Even if you didn't. Have I ever made a zine that wasn't also a comic? I have made 10 zines. Those are the only zines I've made. So appreciate the question, Marsh, but yeah, I've done 10 zines, and all of them, like last year during the zine swap, I produced 4, and I just did 6. Paula says, I was about to mention the drums. That's in the drum circle. Excellent. Well, that's what we're doing today, and that suggestion comes from Eddie Makes Art via P&M Artist Studios. They let me know that Eddie had talked to. That should be a thing for Once in the Draw. So, yeah, we're going to do that. That's what our story is going to be today. So, I think I'm trying to figure out how to go about this, and I think what I need to do is to put some acrylic down on the surface, like just a little bit more, so that I can, because there's no tooth in the darker value. So I'm going to push it back a little bit and draw on top of this, and then we'll push through. I got my water behind me so I don't spill it, and that logic is so unsound, because if there's anything, it's me reaching across the room to grab to dip the brush in. I don't know how I managed to do that. Okay, so thank you, Paula. Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot. So the idea of the reason I'm thinking about this is because somebody asked me a question yesterday. It's a really good question, and it's a really good question to aim at me. We live in a society where it's all about expediting our lives, our output, our sense of accomplishment, our everything. And I do a 1-page story a day. So am I not guilty of being one of these people that does this? It promotes push, push, push. I do a 1-page story a day because I have the facility to do so. But there's no part of me that, if I don't feel like doing one, I don't do it. I just don't. I'm sure that there's a number of pages that I've started that people are aware of, that as soon as I started, I went, I want to finish this one, and I don't. And I don't feel the sense of obligation to accomplishment that I think people might expect I do. I don't feel that, like, if a page isn't working for me, I just drop it. And it's an important thing to be able to do, to just enjoy the process, enjoy the moment. We live in a time and place where it's so hard to have a clear understanding of ourselves and what we're doing, and enjoying the moment in and of itself. Like music, okay? If you fast forward music, you don't get to experience the process. Like, you don't get to experience the music itself. The music is at a tempo. Music is played at a certain speed, and if you fast forward it, you're not going to hear it the way it's intended. So when it comes to art, and when it comes to productivity in general, we live in an age where people think it's the norm now, the expected norm, for you to be able to watch an entire season of something over the weekend, and then you're demanding when the next season is going to be ready. And we've lost sense of the fact that it takes time to make things, and that creative people need time to create. And so when it comes to the speed that I work at, it's just because it's the speed that I work at that I do a page a day. If I work slower, I wouldn't hold on to the routine of it. Just because if I'm going to take a couple days to do a page, then I become a little more lazy and lackluster about when I'll post it. And if I'm going to take X amount of time to do a project, then in all honesty, because attention, hyperactive attention, I don't want to stay with it. I've already divested my full full attention away from that, and I've moved it towards something else. So that's a real reality for me. So that's why I do a page a day. Routine, the speed that I work at, and it helps me to facilitate a focus towards it. There's no comparison of myself to anybody else. There's no expectation that pushes myself to have to accomplish it to my own detriment. If I can't do it, if I'm sick, I'm sick. If I've got another obligation, I got another obligation. But I really appreciate people coming and joining in with me when I come on and stream and taking part and making suggestions. But somebody said, is what I'm doing not part of the commodification of art? And I thought it was important to answer that. If all art publicly shared, that is sold, is commodified. It's just it. And the expectation of art and the accommodation of people on a daily basis is by no means should it ever be a motivation to create. And I can say that because I'm in a position to allow myself expression without it becoming a requirement for accommodation. Now, if you're an artist and you're working for people, then you need to be able to fulfill those obligations and contracts. That's the job. It's a different process of accommodating that job than it is of doing stuff by your own determination. And there's a real distinction in that. This is commodified. If I say to people, in order to give me a suggestion of work from, I expect X, Y, Z, then that's me producing material specifically for people, as opposed to hearing an idea and playing with it. And I appreciate the ideas coming in, but how often do people suggest something and I do exactly the thing that they suggest? Because that's not how it works. That's why I turn down when people say, well, okay, let me describe the whole situation. I'm like, no, that's a paying me thing. Or I'll write a script for you. Don't want one. I just, so that's part of the fun. That's part of the engagement of this. And it's not one that is by any way, shape, or means expecting return. Paula says, I'm known as Prolific Paula over at PM Artist Studio. Not sure if that's a compliment. I think it's meant as a compliment. I think that there are people that look at the ability to create a body of work by other people with an endearment. I think that there are people that look at the level of productivity that others have and compare themselves against it, or idealistically that they would like to be working at that speed or with that ability of proliferation, right? It's not. I don't think it would be meant in condemnation, because especially with PNM artist studios, because those ladies are fantastic, and they wouldn't be seeing it in some sort of prolific Paula. Like they're not doing that, right? Like they genuinely go, Paula gets stuff done. But that's a part of that's the whole thing about this society thing. It's we're all of us in it together, and everybody works at different paces, and everybody works at with different means of output. And that's why I'm always advocating just have fun and figure out whatever it is you're going to use, and it doesn't have to be expensive stuff, and just go for it and throw away mistakes and throw away preconceived notions about expectation for your work and expectation for response to your work, and just enjoy. When I'm working on a project for somebody else, I know what they need, right? That's the whole important part of the conversation in the contract between, is that you know what they need, but that's the arrangement. When you get into situations when you're working on something for somebody else and they've laid out what they require, and they tune you in as a creative to do it, ideally they realize that you're going to do it the way you do it. And if they want to have somebody that is going to dance to the pull of their strings, in a case like me, I'm not the guy. So it's important. It's important that we're recognizing the difference between productivity for gains and productivity because of just pure, sheer enjoyment. I like the enjoyment part. Hi, I'm Mama Juju. Welcome aboard. So, I hope that in relationship to this whole societal produce thing, I hope that it doesn't come across as what I'm doing. The reason that I'm collecting the one-page extravaganza, the one-page stories into a book form is I'm not making a living off of those things by any means, and I haven't sold enough to even accommodate probably the cost of the materials that go in the pages or whatever else, because I'm having it printed through an online thing, and so they take a big chunk of it, and I haven't received anything for it yet. But if people pick up the book and they see ideas in there, and the reason that I have the original art in there and the reason that I have the description of what I did from the suggestion is to hopefully encourage people to do their own thing and to I like that suggestion, I'm going to try it my way. I love that. Or I want to use this for scrapbooking. That's, you bought it, do whatever you want with it. But if it helps other people to figure out, you can work with whatever materials, or you can pursue whatever ideas that you have, or you see something in there, it's like, I'm going to try something like that. Or, I didn't know you could mix those tools, whatever. Then that's the reasoning behind putting the books out. The publishing house that we've had since 2015, One Page is the 75th book that we've done. 30 of the published books that we've done have been my material. But we would just pay cost of everything with the sales that we did, and then the rest of it was given away. So, there's never been something about producing all those books that was for anything more than just this sheer joy of sequential art and sequential storytelling and trying to support other people in their expression of it. So when it comes to output and productivity, be as productive as you like. And like Paula here, no, I'm joking. But be as productive as you like, and follow your muse. And if your muse takes you on a detour, and this week you want to just play your guitar or whatever, or just do some knitting, or just sitting on the back porch sipping lemonade, whatever it is, do it. Right? Art should be something that when you're doing. This is the difference between art and, I guess, art as product, is that when you're doing it because you enjoy doing it, that's art. And when you're doing it because of obligation and your joy isn't in it because of all the different parts that come along with that, expectation from them and their determination on what it's going to be, and due dates and all that stuff, then it's not the same thing. So yeah, either way, have fun and enjoy yourself, and I appreciate everybody tuning in and hanging out with me and making suggestions and stuff like that. But I thought that it was important to sort of address that, and I don't know if other people have been wondering any of those kinds of things, but there we go. Okay, so the suggestion that I picked out today is nuns in a drum circle are called a conundrum. I might have read that wrong. So that's a suggestion from Eddie Makes Art via the ladies at P&M Artist Studio. So that's what I'll be doing today. Now, I've got this mixed media surface that I've shown you. So there's masking tape and paint on it, and it's a heavy board with different papers that have been matte medium down onto it and painted over. So we're going to try to do something fun with this idea. Paul says, I'm just enthusiastic, joyful, and excited to share my art and my journey. Supporting other creators, no matter what their experience level is, the main thing. We're a community. And then she says, come on, Chris, get on with the nuns. There we go. Perfect. That's absolutely perfect. That's a perfect way to look at it. Share your work. It's a form of expression. Enjoy what other people are doing. It's that's part of the stuff that makes us all giggle. Giggle, giggle, giggle. Okay, so I'm gonna move over a little bit because I gotta keep this in frame. So the idea of nuns in a drum circle is a fun one. So I'm zoomed. Okay, I'm on the zoom in camera. So I'm drawing in a blue color erase pencil on the surface here. I just thought that might be fun. I know for a fact that this pencil bleeds when I'm working on it. Not even the nuns are safe. Nobody's safe with Christopher. So I know that this blue pencil bleeds, and so that's going to add some interesting little things to the project as I go here, because there's going to be a little bit of discoloration throughout it, so that's kind of fun. Paula says, I keep thinking about Sister Act. Is that right from this suggestion? That's good. That's Julie Andrews. Like Julie Andrews was in that. I know Sister Act. That's a good one. It's where Julie Andrews comes down off of a mountain that she's spinning on, and she meets this dude who's got too many kids, and she teaches them all to play with puppets. I'm pretty sure that's what that's about. And then she sings about goats. I forgot about that part. She also sings about goats. That's we don't want to leave that out. These are the important little factors for Sister Act. In an urban environment. Oh, and Paula says, whoopee! I'm incorrigible. Julie Andrews, nope. I enjoyed those Sister Act movies. Wasn't there? There's at least two. I hope there weren't more than that. Because you don't want to oversaturate, too many films of something. I mean, that's what we're seeing with things like Star Wars and all these different franchises that they just keep doing more of. There's very few of them that they can do something very different in each one. Like even all the Despicable Me things are all running together now. Paula's correcting me. It's Whoopi Goldberg in Sister Act. Hey, isn't she on The View? Yeah. Wasn't she married to Ted Danson? It's more like, wasn't Ted Danson married to her? She was on fire at the time. People made a big deal out of it. They were an interesting couple. It's unfortunate it didn't last, but they just seemed to be some cool people. As a couple, right? I don't know about them themselves, but I don't know them. I haven't met them. They're just celebrities. Hey, Susanna, how are you? Okay, so I'm drawing some nuns in. I'll just start right off the bat with introducing our nuns. And I'll synopsize it as my brain typically works. And that is, the first panel will be like, nuns, right? Which is, not what it'll end up being in the text, but that is honestly what my brain does, is when I'm working on something, my brain just says the most basic ideas as I'm on the go. Nuns, right? Yeah, that's what I'll start. I'll start with showing some nuns. Now, mind you, we're going to get a little more complex than that, I think. I'm a big proponent of how in the day there used to be, at least here in Canada, a sort of on the CBC there was this program. It was like, the Arctic snowy owl, and it would tell you all about the snowy owl in the course of a commercial. And then it would go on, the Canadian moose, and all these different things would pop up over time. And so there's a part of me that always has this compulsion to do pages with that narrative voice of the North American nun. That's just how my brain works. If I was a documentarian, every documentary would sound like that. I don't know. It's probably just shows you how I'm, what do they call it? Eccentric. I'd like to make a living. Marcia says, personally, I'd like to make a living with art while also preserving the purity of my passion for it. Sincerely curious to believe that's asking too much. Yep. This is okay. And do art and express art because you enjoy it. And do express and create yourself images and music and writing and whatever it is, and sweaters or blankets or mittens or lovely things around your home, or lovely functional things, or just if you're making things, make things and create things, and do so because you enjoy it, and because art's a loaded game. Art is one of two things: lucky chance of meeting the right person at the right time, or you already know all the right people and you can just slide right along into it. I don't want to say that people can't make a full-time living at art. I don't want to be that guy, but it's not going to be easy. And art is a greedy thing to make a career as an artist. It takes all that time for creativity. It takes all that time for then promoting, and for the engagement and solicitation and all these contributing factors, all of them that just pile up and take you away from engagements, relationships, children, your partner. All of those things suffer at the expense of your success, your big success as art person. You can have a job where you do art and get paid for doing art. It's a hustle because there's not enough appreciation and respect of what it takes to create. But you can do it. It's a hustle. But it tends to affect what you're doing. And it tends to affect the life that you lead with those that are around you. And I wouldn't want to see anybody's life suffer because they have this ideal dream of drawing backgrounds for video games. I think that the AI is going to make a big giant mess of things for those industries. So if people are, that's my ideal position in life, is to get a job with those. I would argue reevaluate. I tend to also be a little contrarian in that I don't think that you need to go to school to post-secondary educations, like maybe college, but definitely not university for art, unless you want to be, in that corporatized world. If you want to be the art gallery person or something like that. No drums were involved. You may find this hard to believe, but I went to an all-girls private school run by nuns. That's awesome. I went to no drums were involved in making who I am today. Are you sure then? You guys are awesome today. So, I think that you can create your art, and I think that you can learn about the creation of art. And to do it, there's so many things now that can facilitate that without the burden of all of that economic investment for post-secondary education. That doesn't yield you anything differently. You might meet a couple of people because you went to that school, but aside from that, it's not going to provide any distinct difference than things that you can learn online or take courses, like small courses for. But as far as it goes for this, I want to have a career, then you want to hustle, and you're going to give up stuff. If you're fortunate that people enjoy the things that you're producing and purchase it, that's great. Enjoy that moment and celebrate that moment. But if it becomes a productivity line for you, you're not going to enjoy it. If it becomes, well, I have to produce X, Y, Z because the things that are selling are these, and so now I find myself painting pictures of lawn chairs. on a daily basis for people because they really like my picture of lawn chair. Or, I just use that as an example, but fill it in with whatever example you want to. Because that's what it does. It will make a product of what your expression is, and those are some of the challenging things about creativity. You can get a job doing some design work for something, but it's always an ebb and flow, and it's always changing. But it's challenging. Both Susanna and Paula were taught by nuns. That's fantastic. Oh, that's so good. It's so good to hear. I think that if you want to try to make a career and you want to be an independent that's doing jobs for different people, then do it. But you're gonna hustle, and you're gonna have to. Other things are gonna have to. You're gonna miss out on stuff. Some things are gonna be overtaken by it. If you got a due date and it's due the next day, and yada yada yada, for whatever your job is, whether it's art or something else, then you're not going to the soccer ball game because you're on a commission base you're on a contract base, and that contract says you need to have this done by and submitted by tomorrow. So, and that's a challenging thing to be done for an artist's brain, is that level of discipline to be able to just continue to produce that. There's a difference in the brain between different kinds of creatives, but pure creatives aren't as organized as, say, like just regular artisans or independent, creatives are very different than graphic designers, right? Graphic designers, their brains are usually wired with a better facility for holding on to timetables and due dates, and it's not saying that they're any different or any less of an artist. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that there's a difference between that kind of brain and a person who likes to paint abstract paintings. They tend to be all up inside their head, whereas the graphic designer is understanding that the role that commodity plays on their work. So and they have a better time of working out in the community and working creatively, but at the same time with economic gain. Those that your Andy Warhol types and your Jackson Pollocks and your Leonardos and your Michelangelos and all of these guys, they have all at some point, they either started off knowing all the right people and having the right connections and accommodations, or they made those and had those patrons and a lot of what they did was determined by that for them to be successful. But I don't know that this is as promoted and supported anymore. I just don't. But you've got to bend the knee, and when you're in that scenario where you're working as supported by patrons, because they're going to have things that they want to do. I don't have time management issues. I'm a creative artist. I need that on a bumper sticker. Says Mom. I'm gonna write that down. I don't have time management issues. I'm an artist, or I'm a creative artist on a bumper sticker. There we go. So I think that, especially Marsh, you're very talented. And I think that you can make money doing what you do, but the idea of a full-time living with what you do is only going to come at, because you're working for somebody in a creative capacity. But as far as it goes for you being a creative and Mama Juju, there we go. As far as it goes for you're the guy who's making all the art and wheeling and dealing and eventually you got the agent and all that stuff, hopefully, if you're going to be able to find that measure of success. But it's so much hustle in the meantime, and that it becomes a full-time thing. I got into some discussions with people many years back, and they've never really stopped. And it was only recently that one of those people that I had these discussions with, that I still know, finally said to me, I get it now, I understand what you meant. Because I often, there's this and there's this and there's this available and there's this opportunity and this show, and I turn half of these things down. And the reason I turn half of these things down is that I was a dad. And I understood my time management, and I understood that I couldn't go and do those things because I wanted to engage with my kids in their life. And if I knew I had to take X amount of time more to do that, and then run out to this, submit to this exhibition, and take the money from the family to submit to the exhibition, and then take it to the exhibition and be there for the opening nights and all that stuff. Those things come, so the family has to accommodate that. And I had a hard time with that. Marsh says, do you think we have benefited from artists working in commercial capacity, like, say, Ditko or Kirby? There's a great Ditko story. Ditko was an objectivist, and for those that don't know what that is, there was an American by way of Europe, philosopher named Ayn Rand, and she came up with a notion called objectivism. And what this is it's kind of like absolutism. There's no such thing as, if you've served time in jail, you're not and you've been released, you're not an ex-convict. You are a convict. You were convicted. That's it. You're always going to be a convicted person, whether you're released now or not. You were convicted of a crime, and therefore you're a convict. Black is black and white is white. And that's not racial. This is literally the color black and the color white. Are simply the color black and the color white. Neither of them have degrees of shades to them, because if they did, then they're grays. Black is black and white is white. It's just, everything's an absolute. And Ditko, he heard Ryan's ideas, and he spoke to, like, those spoke to him. That's why he created characters like The Question for Carlton Comics, and then eventually he created Mr. A for his own publishing group, because he didn't own the rights to Spider-Man or The Question for DC. Spider-Man was for Marvel, and those products were the job was writing and illustrating stories, and the outcome of that was the product itself. And so everything else is a process in the way, or along the way. So somebody did a visit to Ditko's studio, and they noticed, because it was really hard to get into Ditko's studio, because he wasn't interested in interviews, and he wasn't interested in fans or any of that stuff. The work is the work. Okay, I'm just the person that creates it. He looked at it like many artists have looked at artwork for a long time, and that is, it's a vocation, and that is that it's a craftsman thing. It's not this egalitarian high society faloof rock star thing. It's a craft. You're a craftsperson. You're a tradesperson. And so when this person visited Ditko's studio, and I can't remember who it was now, but they noticed that he had early issues of Spider-Man on his on his cutting board or on his desk, and there was all these slices in them as he's using them as cutting boards for the projects he was working on then. And there, what are you doing? This is this stuff would be worth hundreds and maybe even thousands of dollars, Steve. And he's like, this is the byproduct. The product is the book. I wrote an sometimes wrote but illustrated these books. That's the art. The book is the product. This is just the byproduct along the way. This is just the things that function for the making of the thing. He's an absolutist. He's an objectivist. The art isn't important in this capacity. The art is important in the product. That's the thing that you're meant to see. And he wasn't necessarily overly concerned about people coming and buying all of his pages up until that point. I don't know if that changed or not, but that basic ideology of looking at art as from a craftsperson's point of view of, well, I'm making this thing, and this is the thing that you're meant to see. This is the part I want you to focus on. If I gotta make a mold in order to create this decorative embellishment in plaster on the ceiling of your living room, so that you're going to hang a chandelier from it, is it really important for you to have the mold? That's his mindset, or that was his mindset at the time. And he didn't ever think that the individual pages for sale at that time was a thing. And then the aspect of getting involved with that thing takes you away from the making of further product or further artwork, because now you're so busy caught up in the commodification of this byproduct. So do artists benefit from working in a commercial environment? Mainstream artists, no matter how small a book that you work on for a larger publisher, more people will know your name from that than they will if you do it by yourself. It's just what it is. But you won't own any of it. You'll have to follow the obligation of what the arrangement is with them. So if a writer has written some script that you might not ethically even believe with some of the things in it, you're hired to just draw that script as a visual artist. So you have to acknowledge the fact that each of those steps is taking you away from just pure art, from just the pure creativity, from whatever your foundation might be. Jim says, "That's me in the corner." Anyways, little REM reference from Jim there. So I mean, you can do it, and there's money to be made from working in a commercial capacity, and that money may well provide your family a living. And there's nothing to be said of those people that they're any less an artist than the person who just works on their own work. It's the same thing. You're just, the means is going through a channel at that for your accommodation, as opposed to, and it's less work because there's somebody else involved in that larger scenario at the company, or collecting clients, or in the production process, that keeps you from having to oversee all of that. And if you want to have that same measure of success as you would just working for those guys, what I'm trying to get across to other artists is that it can be done, but it is a lot of work. So working for commercial companies is the same, there's no ethical difference of that than working for yourself. It's you're creating stuff. There might be more stringent standards, there might be less autonomy, there might be less individual creativity, until at a certain point people just listen to your perspective and your stylistic approach because you've worked your way to that point. As an independent, you get all the freedom of it, but it's twice the hustle because you don't have anybody filling in those gaps. So, you know, it's give and take. Is the commercial world better for artists? Yes and no. Is the independent world better for artists? No and yes. So it's just it's a judgment on want and time. It's just, if you can accommodate your lifestyle by doing X amount of jobs for somebody else. There's the 1 to 3 rule that some people like, is that they do 2 successful jobs for somebody else and 1 for themselves. 2 for somebody else, 1 for themselves. There are people out there that can do that, and eventually over time, eventually over time, the recognition from the 1 and 2 will inspire people to maybe go and purchase your independent project of number 3. But even that's a hustle, right? You're still trying to hustle and recognizing that the only real freedom and creativity and ownership and value in the long term, as far as it goes for self-control or like controlling of your product and rights, it's only going to be with the independent stuff. You're never going to have that working for other companies. You're working for them. You're producing for them. So creativity is important. It just is. We as organisms are compelled to create and are compelled to express ourselves. And I encourage that endlessly. But we have to be consciously aware that in the course of doing so, there is going to be X amount of concessions when we're working with others, when we're working for others. You're going to have to make concessions to your my individual creative idealism that, well, I only like to work this way. Well, they're not hiring you because of that. They're hiring you because they have an objective that you're going to fulfill. That's their whole point. They're companies. I'm looking for a paintbrush. So if you can facilitate that, if you can recognize that, my productivity goes to a point independently, and then I have to play the game, the marketing game, the self-promotion game, or whatever. Bearing in mind, I'm really lousy at that, by the way. I am no good at that at all, and never really have been. I'm always awkward about it. I'm pretty sure every time I leave a conversation I've said something dumb, and so when it comes to engaging with clients, see, I wouldn't be any good at engaging. I don't think I am any good at engaging with clients, and there's never going to be a part of me that doesn't at some point flip over the cart and go, well, okay, I get that idea, that's nice and stuff, but what about this instead? I can't shut off that valve, and so I'm not good in the capacity of working for somebody else specifically for their objective and sticking to it. I've done a whole bunch of things for a whole bunch of people and companies over time, and it hasn't changed it at all. I'm still this way. And the realization for me is that I work faster just doing things. I work so much faster that way without having this defined parameter that I have to work in other than by my own determination, because I have a whole bunch of rules for how I do the one pages. I really do. I have a bunch of different settings in place here in the studio about how I go about doing the pages. I try not to repeat myself. I try not to just keep using the same medium. I want to shake it up. I want to try to challenge myself on a regular basis with how I'm approaching story, and not use the same repetitive motifs and stuff like that. Like there's a whole bunch of different stylistic approaches that I want to shake up and challenge myself with. But if I was told to do that by somebody else, I'd be a fuss bucket about it. And recognizing that about myself, I feel like this approach of working on one-page stories each day from suggestions lets me engage with people and lets me share and interact with people and share some of how I go about doing what I do, and hopefully encouraging and empowering other people to find their process. And if I was working on a Jubilee comic for Marvel, there's no part of me that would be happy. And I wouldn't produce something that I would look at and go, okay, cool. And at the same time, there's a great deal of creators that are able to do that. So that's who they're looking for. They're not looking for me. I often think that when I meet people that are in their, by 40, let's just say 40. If there's people that are in their 40s and they're thinking about, if a lot of their art is focused on just replicating licensed projects of existing companies, in the hopeful bid that one day maybe they can get work with said company, and they're at 40 years old at this point, there's no telling those people that it's not going to happen. And it sounds like such negative naysaying. I wouldn't really want to just do that to them in the first place. But it's if it happens, it's a bolt out of the blue. It's not. But generally, as you get older, you don't have the capacity to meet those due dates and those. If you haven't by 40 facilitated the ability to produce a page a day on a regular basis, from script or from idea or whatever it is, you're not going to work with Marvel Comics. You're not going to work for decent publishers, because it's product. They have product to put out at a certain time. So, you're either working in a productive, formal capacity, or or you can, instead of that, allow yourself to work at the pace and in whatever way works best for you, and still be prolific. I'm going to use your word. You can still be prolific and still accomplish all of the objectives that you're pursuing creatively. And then the right person sees it and buys your stuff, and those are happy days. Those are happy celebrations. But recognize the difference of the two. It sounds. I don't want it to sound doom and gloom. I don't want to sound like it's negative naysaying. I want it. I want to be honest with people that, I know people that are in their 40s that are, well, one of these days I might get picked up by Marvel or DC. I'm going to show my portfolio and say, you're 43 years old. I don't know if they're going to hire you just on, because you'll hear those, what's the first question I'll ask them? What's the first question they asked you? And they say, how long it take to do these pages? And I told them, I was like, man, I knocked these 4 pages out in a couple months. I was really fast at them, and they won't hire you for that. Because they need 22 pages a month for you to be hired on a regular book. They might give you a shot at an individual one-off book, but Or they'll look at your pencils and go, oh, you did some interesting inking on those. You want some inking work? Some of these people don't want to hear that either. It's hard, it's mean, but Paula says, I just need to say, the drums are big. Even those nuns need to sit in the correct position for maximum acoustics. Do you think the world is better for being filled with art and music that has been produced by commercial means, or would it be better another way? Still just discussing. It's an interesting topic. I think that the most interesting stuff is done from an individual point of creativity and not a corporate one. I think that you can do really creative and interesting things and have them released commercial means, but there's a difference between who's in charge, who's the cook in the kitchen. If it's a corporation that's telling you, we want the same album that you just produced, you're not going to have fun making that album. We want you to do this. We want another standard Beach Boys album, and Brian Wilson says, I want to do Animal Sounds, or I want to, or who said that did Amagama? Was that Pink Floyd? Those creative endeavors happen because of the individuals themselves saying, I want to pursue this idea, this creative notion I have. And the machine doesn't want those. The commercial machine just wants more product that it can market and sell. It's not interested in your creativity, unless your creativity is making them dollars. If the record label could just have U2 continuously reproduce Joshua Tree, then they would have U2 continuously produce Joshua Tree. They're not interested in all the other departures. Create things that you love, and then when people do that, then you see albums like Kid A by Radiohead. And if you listen to the record before they did Kid A, it's almost like they're not the same band. Sadly, the fame and fortune commercial machine kills creativity. It can, that's for sure. Did I get the email that I sent you? I'm going to check my emails after the stream. I tend to leave my emails alone in the morning, because if I spend my morning answering, if I start looking at emails in the morning, then I'm not going to do the things, for me, I just got to get right into the stuff I have to do. As far as it goes for drawing things, and then I do the stream here, and there's just a thing that I just want to do, and then I do the business stuff. That's how I structure my time, because that way, okay, get down to it, do the things that you need to, then do the things that you enjoy, and then do the paperwork. What Paula said is really interesting. Fame and fortune, the fame and fortune commercial machine kills creativity. Yeah, it's true. It's true, and it's sad, but I mean, there are some that can have the fame and fortune machine, and yet each thing that they work on is so, they're just pushing the envelope. But like Denny Villeneuve is one. There's a guy who is just, his creativity is unfettered, but he's figured out whatever arrangement at whatever level he could, so that he can immediately just do his projects the way he wants to do them. Guillermo del Toro is the same way, but these guys have basically built their own machine around them to objectively work with in the machine. Banksy is nothing but a corporate product. Banksy is not. There's a tour in London right now for Banksy, in the London, Ontario, Canada, London that I live in. There's an exhibition at our gallery where you can go in and you can, or at a place in the city, anyways, where you can go in and see all the stuff of Banksy. And I've had at least a dozen people bring it up to me. what do you think of the Banksy exhibition? I couldn't care less. I've said this before, there are a number of other graphic artists, street artists, graffiti artists, call them whatever you want, that have been doing the exact same thing that he has, you know, for the same amount and even longer amounts of time. What he does isn't any way unique or original, aside from the fact that he got connected into the fine art machine so that it sees him as commodity. Yeah, but you don't want that guy spray painting on your wall, because there's a good chance that somebody's going to try to take that piece of wall off your building, because it's nothing but product. And whatever he does, somehow they magically find where his spray paintings are. The whole thing is just, you know, it is what it is. But there's a great deal of other people that do similar things to what he does, and I think that many of them, the unsung heroes, that probably do it better. But he's got the machine, the promotion machine, I call it the spaghetti factory. But so I could care less if we're going to see his show. Look up an artist named Shepard Fairey. Shepard. SHEPHARD FAIREY. Enjoy. Banksy's easy to remember. So one of the fun things about using different tools while you're drawing, this is a China marker. That's what it's sometimes called. It's also called a Fano pencil. Like, there's just, China marker seems to be the commonly understood name for what these are. So you can write on glass with these, and you can make notes on metal with these, and but they also kind of work like a crayon as well. And so as I'm going over the masking tape that I have here, it's, let's see if this machine can focus it enough. You're seeing it picking up the little outside extremis of the tape, and it puts this nice little fun little bit of business on there. And you know, these are the sort of things that when scanned and put into the machine, people will be wondering, what the heck is that in the background? You know, so the other sad fact, your art usually never makes money until you're dead. That's not true. That comes from Van Gogh, right? Vincent Van Gogh was mentally unwell, and his brother Theo, after their parents, at least the father, passed, his younger brother Theo had to accommodate Van Gogh's life and pay for him living in the yellow house, and pay for his ideas, and pay for his art, like his art supplies and his food, and his, you know, Theo had to pay for it, his younger brother, who was married, and they had a child. And because he was taking care of his family member. But there's never enough appreciation about Theo Van Gogh. It's only about Vincent. And the fact that he could glob paint on everything is because he wasn't right in the head, and so he had no real consideration or appreciation for how much money he's wasting on oil paint that he's globbing onto a surface because he's in pursuit of some great idea. So he dies, and all that, you know, so Theo's got all of his brother's artwork, as far as they know. They found a bunch of pieces otherwise that he gave the people or tried to pay for things with. Theo dies soon after, and he has a little gallery in the Netherlands, and he sells the occasional work, like he sells works of other artists and stuff. I don't know that he ever sold anything of his brother's. Maybe half a dozen things. And you know, and of course Vincent's like, I'm getting paid for my paintings. Not really. But when he dies, now his wife has a problem. She has a gallery. She has this big old pile of artwork from Vincent, and she has a child to raise on her own. So she starts marketing the heck out of Vincent's works and starts really promoting the holy capoly out of Vincent van Gogh's work. And look at this, and look at all these brave things, and look at all this stuff that he's done. So the whole, and she makes tons of money and has a living off of this. And of course, all these people afterwards are making money selling this off and selling this at a higher rate and selling it at a higher rate. None of that money has ever gone to the Van Gogh family. And now it's worth millions. And none of that goes to their descendants, So the idea of making money after you're dead, that's where that comes from. Because before that, that wasn't the case. Before that, that wasn't the case. That was, it was because that's where that expression comes from. But Andy Warhol made tons of money while he was alive. You've got all kinds of big name artists in North America that make oodles and doodles of cash. And the way the machine exists now is that if they're not, if their paintings aren't fetching millions while they're alive right now, when they die, a lot of these big, these fancy guys that I made $200,000 last year. When you die, your family's not going to make that much money because you're dead. And where's the promotion machine now? It's not going to focus on you because that's not how the system works now. Gupta. There was an abstract artist here in Canada named Gupta, and he produced tons and tons and tons of work. But he was at home, a senior citizen, taking care of his wife who was losing her faculties. And after his wife had passed is when he had his first major exhibition in 30 years. And, his work sold, and people realized, oh, wow, Gupta's incredible. Unfortunately, he passed soon after that. But it didn't mean Gupta's paintings were suddenly worth millions. It's challenging, right? But if you're doing paintings and you're promoting and you got somebody repping you, you should make money while you're alive. If you've got a rep and you're not making money while you're alive off your paintings, you have the wrong rep. There's a guy in London here named Michael Gibson. He has the Gibson Gallery downtown. I think he's still got a face gallery in downtown core. He had for a long time, but COVID and the drug epidemic that's facing most North American cities, you might not. But he represents artists, and he represents their work in galleries around the world, and he makes a living from that, and they make a living from that. So it's possible. That's why Bjork is one of my biggest inspirations. I don't really see her compromising, and she seems to do well for herself. Yep. Yeah, Bjork's a great one. I've liked Bjork since she was in the Sugar Cubes, and I thought the Sugar Cubes were amazing. Picasso made a lot of money from his art in his lifetime. Yep, he did. What about Hans Hofmann? Hans Hofmann was doing all kinds of creative and interesting things. At the same time, he knew Picasso, he knew all these guys and this sort of thing, but he had to leave Europe because things were getting complicated for his people in Europe. So he went over to North America, and he started the Long Island School of Art. He taught Robert De Niro's parents, by the way. They asked him to be Robert De Niro Jr.'s godfather, and that's the actor, Robert De Niro Jr. There's a guy who was just, pushing the boundaries on art and he was an advocate of the push and pull of color and the idea of the volume and space and the interrelationships of those four different components and how they, they interact with one another to draw the eye in a composition. He's responsible for, educating a great deal of the American Abstraction School. But Picasso's an easier name. Picasso. Hans Hofmann. Took too long. So one person gets glorified, and then we put all the juice into that cup. But there's a lot of other really really good cups out there that could you need to fill those up a little bit too. That's not how a market works. A market looks at this thing and everybody jumps on the same bandwagon because the general populace, the general group, follows the narrative, you know, and that's it. They just follow the narrative. It's easier than investigating for the new one. If this one says, oh, this is the neat thing, and a whole bunch of them go, which way is that? And they go and follow the neat thing, and they completely miss the obvious thing that's to the left, because they've already got half the factoids from that one. It's a sad thing about mankind. We all tend to groupthink a lot of times, and this is also part of the problem of independent versus commercial. No, we need to think this way because this works. And independent says, yeah, man, I'm going to try this. And commercial would say, no, we're not supporting you trying that because it's not going to make us money, and you're here to make us money. And the independent, you know, is far more likely to do the risky thing that might not necessarily make them money, but they're exploring that avenue. They're exploring that potential option. As an independent, they can do that without somebody saying, stay to the left, stay to the left. Yeah, Jack Kirby was working on Thor, and the culmination of the Asgardian belief system is a thing called Ragnarok. All of the deities in Asgardian, well, I guess the entirety of Norse belief, they have a culmination point where all of the gods and all of the great beasts and bad gods, they all face off and wipe each other out. And at the end of wiping each other out, the world restarts. Everything begins again. And there's new iterations of everybody that pops up. So Thor dies battling the Midgard serpent. Tyr dies battling Garm, the big beast, the big hound of the afterlife, and all of these gods, Odin and everybody else, die taking down the bad guys, and the bad guys do mortal injury to them, so they die too. So, and out of all that death comes the new version of them. And so Kirby, who created Thor for Marvel and all of those characters, he said, well, why don't we do Ragnarok? And Stan said, what are you, crazy? You can't kill all of these licensed characters that we have. Come on, these guys, you know, these are our versions of them. We own these things like this. And so Jack was pretty ticked about that. So he went over to DC with a lot of the conceptual work that he had done for where he wanted to take things next, and he created the New Gods. And people couldn't believe Jack Kirby went to DC. The guy that created Marvel has gone over to the enemy. And yeah, because they would listen to him creatively. So he went over there and he worked with them for I think like 4 years, and then realized that that contractual arrangement wasn't entirely to his liking. But he produced us a wealth of material in the meantime. You know, all the Jimmy Olsen comics at the time, and because he was folded into the Fourth World, Mr. Miracle, the Forever People. Yeah. Paula says that these nuns are looking too serious. Let them loose on the kettle drums, dude. So I have an idea. So this is the presentation of nuns. Okay, in my first panel. Everybody knows nuns, like in that movie that Whoopi Goldberg, where she's taking care of those Austrian kids, and but what people don't seem to appreciate enough is nuns' love of rhythm. They're not just about marching up and down the square. And so this is me having some nuns in a processional line, all walking into a space. And then my intention is right here is to have them swing kettle drums from around their hips, and then of course the bottom part of this page is just these gals in a big circle, smacking their kettle drums. And at that point in the dialogue, then we can get into the, what do you call a bunch of nuns in a circle? I mean, conundrum? And it's a long way for a dad joke. The two on the left look like my ex-gym teachers. One was reserved, and the other one was reserved, and the other one's happy. Paula says, love it. That's what I'm talking about. The challenge is you got to get to that point. You got to sort of build up the narrative, right? I think that there's an interesting challenge in finding a way to make art in the system. It's in a bit of a subversive, disruptive way. There's some brilliant things that people have put out over time. There's some brilliant work that people are producing on a regular basis. Mickey Montillo, who did the Worship Jolly Roger series, and he's done a number of other books for European publishers. He's just worked on 120-page Wonder Woman story that I would actually check out. And he's made a name for himself in Europe with it, and in North America with his work, but he's not going to be celebrated anywhere near as much as he is for Wonder Woman. That's just how it is. That's how the machine works. Oh, Wonder Woman, we know that one. Worship Jolly Roger is brilliant. It's an absolutely brilliant 2-volume book. But if you've got the guy who created Thor and all of these characters that are in the Thor magazines and launched all those, as well as Fantastic Four, X-Men, Incredible Hulk, Captain America, and the company that he's producing all these characters at, the company that owns them, and he says, I want to take this creative leap, and they go, no, we can't do that. The system's unbalanced. It just is. The creative thing has to concede to the demand of the machine, and that's just how it is. I mean, there's not little creative things that you can't do. I'm not saying that. It's saying in general, the machine wins, because the machine is where the money comes from, and the money sticks with the money. We'll have none of the rhythm stuff. None but none puns from here on out. I got a feeling. Yeah, nuns, they go to the beat of their own anyways. So Kirby did the Fourth World for DC. Created Darkseid, created Mr. Miracle, created all the new gods, created a fun little character called the Funky Flashman in the Mr. Miracle book, which is as him tipped off at Stan Lee, and he's going to make a character that shows Stan Lee for Stan Lee. It's not until Stan's in his waning years that people are producing the Marvel, the Marvel comics, the true story of Marvel Comics, and exposing the fact that it was just corporate and at the expense of the creative. The creative would be laid off all the time in order to make up for the financial overages of the way that books worked back then. They would forgive if books didn't sell for publishers. They just said, just send, rip the cover off the books and send them back, and we'll write those off as loss. And this was a scheme that Stan had, but he still recorded their numbers as these are all books that went out and got sold this month, and so the shareholders look at it and go, oh, that's great. But he doesn't talk about how many of them are returned. He doesn't record it like that. He just records it as outgoing. And look at how much of the market share we've cornered. And then when they go, wait a minute, we're producing all these goods with this much material use, and yet the numbers are only this much. And you can only say, oh, well, it's transitional. It comes back and forth, right? So many times before your shareholders go, dude, make some cuts, and those cuts were the creatives. That's just how it was. It's businessman first. But that's part of the routine. I mean, this is those things that need to be done in order to keep that company rolling along. And bearing in mind that the owner of the company that published Marvel Comics was his father-in-law. So, you know, you got to make those decisions and those choices, and so at the end of the day, you don't want one of your creators, even if you created all those characters for your company, you don't want him knocking them all off, because that's, now you got to rebrand and relicense a whole bunch of other characters for you to make your profit margin from. Same thing happened with Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons and The Watchmen. Originally, DC bought all the Carlton characters, and they hired those two to do a 12-issue introductory series to bring them into the DC universe. Alan Moore presents them the script for The Watchmen, and like, you out of your mind? We gave you, spoiler alert from a book from the 80s, we gave you these characters in order to have you do this introduction for these characters into the company, and the majority of them are dead at the end of the book. You know, even if he's done this big exploratory piece on, would you actually want to live in a world that has superheroes? So they changed the look of all the characters, and the question became, you know, Rorschach, and Captain Atom became Dr. Manhattan, and 12-issue miniseries, and all the characters are dead at the end. But for a moment there, that wasn't going to happen. You know, because it didn't fit the objective goals of corporate product. So creatively, you have to make concessions. You have to work within the machine. As a creative, the guy that creates Walking Dead can decide if he wants to kill characters off. It's his book, and the way that he has it arranged as a publisher at Image, he can make that decision, and it's nobody above him at Image can say, you can't kill that guy. He's the #1 dude. Because he owns that. So that works for him. But that's a special circumstance. The guy that did the Hickman that did the X-Men Dawn of X, Powers of X series, he couldn't take it all the way that he wanted to take it, and he was getting burnt out of running all these things. And I don't know the entire story, but I know that in the third stage of it, they'd hired all new people to do it, because it had to continue, it had to keep going, and they had to put out X amount of books, and so he's off the books, and the ending of that was a big giant pile of garbage. And now the stuff that they're going to be putting out now is just more of the same generic stuff that they know makes the money. And what was lauded as this incredible thing at the beginning is now all these people saying, oh, finally X-Men are back to what was good. And it's got nothing to do with he started at the beginning of his tenure as the person overseeing those titles. It's the junk they did with it, you know, that took it from where it was heading. So the machine even forgets all of the wonderful contributions he made when he was you know, formulating a strategy for the new direction of a title. It's tricky. You're not an individual creator when you're working for the machine. You're just not. You're a person creating product. That's tough. I still advocate, well, basically theft. You know, and it is and it isn't. As far as the corporate machine figures, it is. But as far as creativity expresses, it isn't. If you really like Spider-Man and you want to do a Spider-Man story, then make a character that's kind of like Spider-Man and do your Spider-Man story. It's not, your whole world isn't contingent on you just, like, you know, if your guy's in different colors but the same Spider-Man costume, you haven't done a decent enough job of it. But it's, you know, it's got to be somewhat unique. But you can do the stories that you want to pursue, and you can do them without having to be stuck within the corporate engine. But you know, you've got to let that creativity show for it. So Alright, so I'm going to do a third and fourth nun here. So the example here is talking about nuns, talking about their regular routines, and then the third panel is going to be, but a little known fact, and they're going to be swinging the drums around on their hips, and here they've got these big kettle drums hanging on straps over their shoulders. Paula says, I keep thinking about all of the famous people. Elvis, George Michael, Prince, Vincent van Gogh, fame and fortune, sad private lives, and loneliness. That's part of the cost. If you want to be a big successful artist, there's a cost. And that cost is happiness. Like that there's a couple things that happen. One is when you have everybody conceding to your diva nature because you're over accommodated. Oh, so and so is a great celebrity, and we must afford them all these different luxuries because that's how, for whatever idiotic reason, we treat actors as opposed to treating doctors. So it tends to make your head not work in a grounded kind of a way, so that a lot of these people get into all kinds of self-harm and get this unrealistic perspective on life around them. And and then there's that second part of mental health and whether or not they're taken care of or taking care of themselves. And then there comes that third part of expectation for constantly producing, constantly outputting, feeding the monkey, feeding the machine. So a lot of these people don't last. It's a sad thing, and they want to be who they are as individuals, but how do you live an individual life when you're a product? And as soon as the machine gets a hold of you, you become a product. George Michael, a product. Prince, a product, right? That's the cost. You give away your individuality in order to be this massively marketed and big name. Tom Cruise isn't a person. Tom Cruise is a product now. Been a product for a long time, enough so that there's an entire church around him facilitating his being what he is. A completely unrealistic life. And yet, societally, he's very successful. But he's not a person. So, Madonna? Tell me Madonna's rational. There's villages in Africa that hide their kids when she comes nearby. Okay, that's a mean joke. But, yeah, Madonna's not a normal person. She never will be. So that's the price of that fortune and fame. Any public persona that oversteps your individuality, that's what you are now, whether you like it or not. And as soon as you decry that, as soon as you counterintuitively go against it, you're done. You're over. You're done. Mel Gibson makes statements in an inebriated state, and they just shut him down out of Hollywood, and then try to sneak him back into the productive machine a few years later. They're trying to do the same thing with Kevin Spacey now. It's a person that took great liberties at the expense of other people's lives. And let's just get him back, and he should be allowed to come back and act now. We want to make money from him. It's sad. Marsh says, what was more a success than Watchmen? Not much, interestingly. They killed the characters. The book lives on to this day. Watchmen, there's an arrangement with Watchmen in DC. When Watchmen goes out of print, the ownership of those characters goes to Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore. So the book has never been out of print. That's how the corporate machine holds on to its characters, is that they never took it out of print. So the success that it is, the big push that it is, that's to keep them from losing those characters' licenses. And from that point forward, all the money and fame and glory of Watchmen would go to the creators. So, I guess. There's there's a great body of work that is produced by people that, you know, is done within the confines of the machine that shakes it up. And Neil Gaiman's Sandman series really shook it up. But Alan Moore's Swamp Thing and then Hellblazer by that was also started by Alan Moore as a spin-off of Swamp Thing. And then Sandman comes along and they created an entire imprint, a sub-imprint of a company, basically a new company called Vertigo, off of the backs of those books. You know, yeah. I wonder, did those creators still reap in the bounty of all of that in relationship to the machine? No. But that's why Watchmen lives on to this day. And then, of course, despite the fact that Alan Moore, they had some sort of arrangement, some sort of gentlemanly agreement about DC wouldn't bring those characters back and do anything with them. Now, you know, all of those they've done, you know, before Watchmen or whatever that series of books were that added nothing. They added nothing. Paula says, like, who really needs $900 billion per year? True that. How can you feel good about yourself with this great excess of wealth and travel around the world and go anywhere and see other human beings that are in circumstances that no one should be in? How do you sleep at night? $980 billion. Marsh says, just to be clear, I'm not interested in the fame part. I'm just hoping for a livable career doing something I enjoy. May not be realistic, but that's what I like to do. You can absolutely have a career doing a thing you enjoy. Again, I was at a comic book store for 21 years, you know, and but I got sick, and I couldn't, you know, there's a choice to make. Do I keep on doing this, or do I shift gears? And when I got sick, it was at a time where, well, we got our house and the kids are grown up, and so, okay, I don't have to do this thing anymore. But I did art at night. That entire time, I did art in the evenings. And you're still able to pursue your creativity and your art in an unencumbered way. But I think a lot of artists have this idea that I'm only going to do pure creativity. And that's very, very rare. Paula says, mental health. Oh yes, I was just thinking about Bruce Willis, the most wonderful actor and lovely man as far as I know. And then he has dementia. He just has dementia. But even though he has dementia, what are they doing? Marching him out. You got independent films with a budget of $4 million, and they're awful movies, and he's in there for a couple of scenes and says a couple of lines with less and less emotion as unfortunately his health is you know, falling apart. And he's got an earpiece in. Somebody says the line to him, he says a line out loud. Do you want your career to be left off on that note? How much money do you need? You know? He did some fun films, but, you know, nothing I've enjoyed in the last so many years. But yeah, Hudson Hawk is amazing. It's a great, fun film. Marsh says, I didn't know that about the Watchmen. Nobody knows that unless, you know, you find out insider industry stuff. Marsh, what's your regular job? Paula asks. Maybe if, Marsh, you don't feel like disclosing that, you just DM Paula or something. If you guys want to, yeah. You don't want Marsh, I don't want you to feel like you have to tell anybody personal stuff. But at the same time. It's a lot to expect to. I'm gonna make a grand living doing book illustration without recognizing that you're gonna hustle ahead of you, because there's so much of the other that has to be done in order to make as a person producing all these books and stuff. There's still all of that business and the stuff that has to be done. And so when people enter it with an understanding of that, they'll be okay. But no one is going to pursue somebody in their own home and come into their living room and say, I knew it, this is where the greatest, banjo maker in history has ever been. We found him. That's you got to do what you got to do to pay the bills, and eventually maybe the stuff that you create in your own time in the evening go somewhere. It's hard though. It's hard because ideally you would, everybody, myself included, would like to just be able to do the thing that I want to do and not have to worry about anything else in the world. I mean, that's a creative thing, is that your brain just disappears into the making of things, the expression, the pursuit of these ideas that you're trying to get out. It's something that affects most creatives on the planet, and most people would want to be able to do that. And then people that aren't just those creatives, they're like, I wish I could just lie in the grass and smell the flowers. And everybody has that compulsion to be able to just idle in their own interest. But I don't know, that's the problem with the world today, is that we gotta find some means to accommodate it. And I say that's the problem today, and the truth be told, it's how it's always been. I'm sure cavemen just wanted to hang out and smack some rocks together. We'll bang some rocks today. And his wife Ugg says to Gronk, get out there and get some food stuff. Oh, hungry. And Grog's drags himself out of the cave and goes and gets some food stuff for Ugg and their 8 children, and tries not to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. There's a whole book in that, I think. Bills gotta be paid, that's true and real. Oh yeah. Marcia's a logistics specialist, which is a fancy way to say a warehouse guy. It's kind of a manager too. There you go. It's an interesting thing is everybody. Here's a fun thing. Everybody in Hollywood is an actor, or a director, or a sound technician, or a producer, or whatever idealistic dream that took him to this artificial place. And so what brought you to Los Angeles, says the person in the restaurant, and the waiter says, well, I'm an actor. It's like, all right, since I'm drawing nuns, I got a great story for you. Oh, first, Paul says I'm an autism specialist and social worker. My art has always been seen as a crafty hobby. Before I go to the joke I was going to tell, art is a crafty hobby. Like, how about we reduce the hobby part and look at it as what it is, and that's a craft, right? All art is a craft. Writing and drawing sequential stories is a craft. There's nothing wrong with looking at art as a craftsperson at all, right? I love watching streams by craft people producing very crafty works and stuff that knitting things that I don't knit, but I look at them in all honesty with the same level of legitimacy than what I myself do. Even though that what I do and what they do is not the same, we're all just craftspeople, and we're making crafts. We're applying our crafts. We'll get it right. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I absolutely love the term. I love the assessment of being a craftsman as an artist, because otherwise I'm a writer and an illustrator and a sequential artist and a write and draw. Craft. Older lady pretending to be an artist. No, you're not pretending. Art is a craft. Craft is our art. Yeah, there you go. Nice. Yeah, just that's it. Like that's we don't have to validate ourselves for anybody else and whatever their preconceived notion is. They don't know. Funniest thing that a lot of creatives get, when you tell somebody what you do, they'll always refer you against somebody else, right? What do you do? Well, I illustrate pictures. Well, I had a brother who used to draw. When we were at the cottage when we were kids, he did the best watercolors. Best watercolors anybody's ever seen. Okay, cool. It's, can't help you. I don't know what to say to that. That's cool. Other than that's cool. I'm glad your brother enjoyed it. Does he still do it? Well, I bet he probably does right now. He's an actuarial. Okay. But they're trying to relate to a different mindset that creatives have than other people might have, and I appreciate that and respect that, but it happens all the time, right? I'm sure everybody's got their story. My favorite horrible cartoon, like the worst cartoon I've ever seen, is a guy sitting in front of his easel. He's got his palette in one hand and his brush in the other, and there's a person, and we don't see what's on the easel, we see the back of it as he's sitting in front of it, and a person standing beside him goes, oh, that's very interesting. So tell me, what do you do for a living? And that just, if there's not a better assessment of how the world around us looks at what crafts people do, what creatives do. That's why I say creative and not specifying all the different things all the time, because it's all just creativity. I feel there's a part of me that feels bad about people that don't have either a call to creative expression or an appreciation of it. I feel bad for those people because I wonder what goes on in their heads, right? My dad was a builder. In fact, he was a master craftsman, especially in wood. All his life, he never got the praise and respect. Isn't that something? See, this is what I'm talking about. They don't see the process. They see the output. They just see the output. They see the outcome. They don't see the process to get there. And one of the reasons that I'm always trying to encourage everybody, let it go, just get at it, beat it up. There's no mistakes. Those are opportunities. Like the Polakian statement. But they're not going to understand either way. Those from the outside in, they're not. There's no part of them that's even going to try to relate. They just want to see what it looks like at the end, because to them that's tangible. Creatives don't always deal in the tangible. Creatives, we start from the place of the intangible, and then we try to pull it out of it. So, and yet at the same time, to do something that you enjoy as a career is possible. I work in a bookstore for years. I write and draw books now. But when I got myself to a place where it's not like we're flourishing or we're in some grand place, but at the affordance of my health, I work in the studio all day. because we're in a place where the pressures aren't as much as they were when I was younger. But I'm still doing, hauling butt every day. It's just I'm not hauling my butt for somebody else. It's a tricky thing to find that balance. You got to find a career that you can do that doesn't feel like it hollows you out. Creatives should not. If you can't find a creative outlet in your career, you've got to be able to find some time, to carve some time to find it when you're in your own time and in your home. Other people don't need to do that. They just don't. But I'm sure that when they're not at work, I don't know, they want to go jet skiing. They want to do whatever they find fulfillment in. In that regard, it's the same. It's just those things don't require them digging inside their guts and wrestling with whatever thoughts that they're having in a tangible way. My wife's dad retired at 79. And he built the house that she grew up in and that they lived in, and we still meet people to this day. We met somebody the other day. Well, we'd met him before, but suddenly this connection was made when he was at the house and he saw a portrait I did of Laurie's dad and realized, how do you know this guy? Laurie says, that's my dad. And he's like, I knew your dad for years. It's just because he had such an impact on the area we live in, because he was such a master builder. And we got to take those moments. You got to find those moments, Paula, about your dad. I'm sure he's done some work for somebody in some place, or go visit some of the things he made. Somebody appreciates those things. That's the legacy of creatives. That's it. More so than that, it becomes product. People that say, Marsh says, there are people who live the saying, do what you love and you won't work a day in your life. In my experience, here's a loaded statement. In my experience, the kind of people that say that, do what you love as a career and you'll never work a day in your life, that sort of stuff, come from a place of accommodation. In my experience, I've never met anybody who espoused that to another living being that didn't have an accommodation to make them be able to do that. That's just me. I'm sure that there's lots of exceptions to rules, but anyone that I've ever heard that come out of their yapper, they were already in a position where, well, I guess you can say that. I myself, I'm at an age and I'm at a place in life where here I am. But, I've spent a lifetime of working different jobs that had nothing to do with what I wanted to do to get by, and then you go and do the thing that you want to do at night. It's very few people that can just throw it all in there and into doing the thing that they just love to do without cost. Like I think it was Paula earlier that said without loneliness, or without the family, or without there's always something that goes by the wayside. Oh, maybe the family's good, but your kids are all monkeyed up, or there's always a cost. It's a greedy monkey, not art, not expression. The greedy monkey is the machine that wants to make the most of it. Paula says, I'm so glad I could join today. Very interesting conversations. Oh, that's super cool, Paula. I'm glad. I appreciate you taking part. Yeah, I pray and I hope and I advocate that everybody here has the opportunity to pursue the creative calling that they have. I want you to be able to carry a sketchbook and doodle on the bus, or you got your break time at work, and you don't have calls to make or things to check in with. Give yourself a few minutes to scribble some things down in your book, whether they're ideas or they're images. Give yourself those little moments to get by and do the things that you need to do in order to be able to do the things that you want to do. Art can be lonely. That's why we reach out and connect with artsy friends. There's a group that gets it. That would be that group, right? I mean, those would be the ones that kind of understand what's trying to be said and what's the idea at hand. So yeah, by all means, reach out to other creative people. I love that, Paula. That's lovely. Grant yourself some grace. Yeah, that's perfect. Well, anyways, a lot of blabbering from me today. So yeah, I wanted to talk to the idea of what is my productivity got something to do with commerce or got something to do with commodification of what I do, and I just enjoy what I do, and I have the opportunity to do it, and I work fast, and I can't produce enough things for how many things are going through the noggin. So that's how it works for me. But it also has a lot to do with the fact that I'm in the place where I can do this now. But for people who just need to find some time to be able to do the things that they enjoy. Some are going to be more productive than others with their time. Some are going to be brilliantly producing works that might take more time. It's all just the same. It's all the same. Just find some time to express yourself creatively if you feel called to do so. But I'm going to head out for now. I will be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. I hope everybody has a lovely day, and go make something. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining in and taking part. I'll get this finished and posted for tomorrow. If you got a one-page story idea or 3-word prompts or just a piece of dialogue or whatever you want to suggest, please feel free to put it in any of the comments, and I'll do my best to get it into the book and get produce that page at some point in time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Mama Judy. Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Marsh. Thank you, Linda and Tim. I'm sure that Linda will be watching this. Thank you, Jim. Thank you for everybody else that stopped by. I hope you all have a great day. See you tomorrow, too. Bye for now.